Food is more than just what's on our plate. It's the places where it's grown, it's the people who grow it, and so much more. Join me, Janice Person, your host, on Grounded by the Farm every other week as we talk about the foods we love. I don't know about some of you, but when it comes to fall and those first few days of hoodie weather come, I can't wait for holidays to get here. And the first big holiday of the year is one of my favorites, Halloween. I can't imagine Halloween without pumpkins. We're going to do things a little bit differently for the next couple of months. We're only going to be talking about foods that have a specific place in our holidays. And so with that, we're talking pumpkins today with Shannon Latham from Northern Iowa. Shannon runs Enchanted Acres. Her family does a lot of other things in agriculture too, but Enchanted Acres is her personal passion. She loves growing pumpkins. She loves having the public come out and visit, doing the decorations, talking about which pumpkins are better for pies, talking about what recipes she wants. And luckily for us, we've got all of that in the show notes this week. So let's go ahead and get started right off with Shannon talking about how fall is going this year in Northern Iowa.
It has been a beautiful fall so far in North Iowa, which, Janice, I always get a kick out of following you on social media and talking about how cold it gets. I'm always hopeful we can finish the pumpkin season without a snow. Snow in the pumpkin patch is not my friend, but it's going great. The leaves are starting to turn. We've had the perfect hoodie apple cider weather so far.
Nice.
So let's hope that continues.
Yeah. It's horrible to go to a pumpkin patch and be hot and sweaty, I think. It's like football games. You want to be a little bit chilly, but you don't want to be cold, right?
Right. So there is nothing like the super hot 85-degree weather to kill business at a pumpkin patch. You're absolutely right. Another one is drizzle. No one wants to go out and pick pumpkins in a drizzle. And if we could only order 65 degree and sunshine with no wind, that's what I would put on tap for every weekend of October.
I love it. So we're talking right at the changeover from September to October. This will go up in about 2 weeks. Can you tell me, when is your busy season? Was I crazy for scheduling you as the 1st of October hit?
No, that's perfect. And I don't know if you know this, but October is National Pumpkin Month. So as a foodie, I'm all about celebrating food holidays early and often. So October is National Pumpkin Month, and we typically open mid-September. So in Iowa, the Iowa State game weekend is like our Super Bowl. And when I was new to the pumpkin patch business, I opened that weekend, and it was a lonely place to be. It was a very lonely place because everybody in Iowa is either watching the game, hosting a watch party, or going to the game. So I have learned, and I typically open the week following, which is usually the 3rd Saturday of September.
I love it. Out of all the farmers I've talked to, you're probably one of the few that a lot of people think, hey, pumpkin farm, I've done that, right? So a lot of people have gone out and picked pumpkins or taken photos on a pumpkin farm, and your farm is one of those farms for people in Northern Iowa, right?
Right. In fact, when you talk about that, and we all kind of joke about what's Pinterest inspired, one of my favorite photo opportunities was when a young couple came out. She showed me a picture that was Pinterest inspired or Instagram inspired. I'm not sure which at the time, but it was this couple kissing in the pumpkin patch. And she's like, would you take this for me? So yes, it is that place. And I just like having cute places, whether you're a young couple in love or you're a family, and you make it an annual tradition. So I really love seeing that where people come and bring their kids back year after year. We have a photo board that says how tall this fall, and it allows them to continue to measure. And it's just really fun to see those families come back time and again. But I think that it might be one of the biggest misconceptions is that people think, oh, pumpkin patch, that's just for people with toddlers. But we really try to provide activities. I'm a big believer in experiences and creating experiences. I believe experiences create memories.
Right.
And so we offer activities every weekend with different ages in mind. So Every weekend, we offer a special pumpkin decorating workshop. It might be buttons and bows. It might be
Oh,
decorating pumpkins with succulents to make a centerpiece for your Thanksgiving table. But I try to think of things that people might not do at home. So I
right.
think people traditionally think of carving pumpkins,
Yep.
but they don't maybe think about other things they could do. One weekend this fall, we'll be using furniture tacks to decorate pumpkins. And then every weekend we allow people to paint pumpkins and they can glitter them up because with the
I was going
farming
to
like
ask about
Enchanted
glitter
Acres. Yeah,
because that's one of those things I would not do at home, but I would love the glitter
exactly.
pumpkin to stay out on the front porch, never come in the house.
Right. So I like to say leave the mess with us and take home your masterpiece. And so the name of our area where we do all of the pumpkin workshops is called Geppetto's Workshop because I'm a big Disney fan. And
Obviously.
I just thought that was a good fit. It's like leave the mess. And also we only charge $5. That includes your pumpkin, your paint, your glitter. If you went to Hobby Lobby or Walmart and you wanted to buy different colors of paint as well as the pumpkin, you couldn't do it for $5. So I think it's just affordable. I was going to say affordable family fun, but really affordable fun for the whole family. It's fun to see grown mother daughters come. Last weekend, I had a mother, daughter, and daughter-in-law come out
Yeah.
and they did succulents. It's also been a great area or a great activity, I should say, for bridal showers. So like the bridal party, you come out and decorate pumpkins. So yeah, I really like to think that we appeal to a broad audience.
I would tell you, our office over the years, probably 20 years ago, I started doing pumpkin carving contest or pumpkin decoration contest, and it's amazing how competitive people can get in that if it's a
Yes, it is.
contest.
Yeah, exactly. Contest is the key word. People, especially, I worked in an advertising agency in West Des Moines, and we did the same thing. And those graphic designers, there was no way I could compete with them on the pumpkin carving, so I had to enter the pumpkin baking contest. And the little 4-H'er in me is proud to say I won the pumpkin baking contest one year.
Oh, that's funny. I actually can claim ownership of a ribbon from the pumpkin decoration contest because I used inside humor, right? Like at an office, we all have those insider jokes. And to create a pumpkin that
Sure.
illustrated one of those brought me the big prize one year. So, quite proud of that.
Well, you
I
should be.
exactly. So, I was an accidental pumpkin grower one year. I don't know how many people have
So
ended
how
up in
did
that.
that happen?
Right? My front porch, when I bought a new house, the people had young kids, and I don't know if somebody accidentally broke the pumpkin into the nice flower bed, or if somebody just never dealt with it and ultimately just kicked it there to die. But the first year I lived there in the fall, I had this weird vine come up. And and I can't help my curiosity. I had to let it go, right? So from the spring, and then I started seeing the flowers, and I'm like, ugh, squash or pumpkin. One of those. What do you think people should know if they try and grow a pumpkin? Probably not the
It
best way
takes
to
a
do it.
lot of space. It takes a lot of space, which I'm sure you found out, right? Those
Those leaves
vines
got
can go
big.
for four. Yes, the leaves get big and the vines can go for feet.
Yes.
So when we plant our pumpkins, we plant them anywhere from 8 to 14 feet apart. And there's a couple of reasons we do that.
Wow.
We want them to vine out, but we also, raising pumpkins in large quantities like we do is really hands-on. It takes a lot of labor. And so we do it every so often. We make it a little bit wider so we can get through with the tractor and cultivator.
Yeah. So tell me, I obviously did not have that kind of space. It took over part of my front yard as well as the flower bed. And
Yes.
it was not your typical orange pumpkin. So do you guys grow just traditional orange pumpkins, or there seems to be a lot of different things going on in the pumpkin world?
Yeah, I think you would be amazed if you saw a pumpkin grower's catalog. It's literally like, and I know you, Janice, would be familiar with a seed catalog. Not everybody who's listening probably is, but what would that be? Half inch thick, maybe? And it's all different pumpkin varieties. And I'm like a kid in a candy store when I opened that book because this year what was new was yellow pumpkins. So
Oh,
I am totally fascinated by pumpkin breeders because who thinks of this stuff like a yellow pumpkin? I plant more than 20 varieties, but it's honestly a struggle to keep it down to 20 varieties
I would
because
say if
they're
you've got
so
a
cool.
half-inch thick book of different seed varieties, even if it's just one per page, that's a lot of pages. I would really have
It is
trouble.
a lot of pages. I mean, you would be amazed by the number of different colors and so many different uses. So, one of the pumpkins that I grow is called the peanut pumpkin. For those who know French, I can't even pronounce it, but you would know it by a French name. And it looks like little peanuts are growing on there. So I just harvested some of those. Some of them are called speckled hound. Oh, that's the other thing. The marketer in me loves the name of these different pumpkins and squashes. So the speckled hound is orange and green together, and it's
Oh,
speckled.
yeah.
Then there's one year I bought some just because it was called fairy tale, and I really thought, Enchanted Acres should offer the fairy tale. It's probably no surprise to you that our signature pumpkin is called the Cinderella. And it's like if you watch the Disney movie, it looks just like a Cinderella coach. It's flat, and they are awesome for stacking. And so I usually put a Cinderella pumpkin on the bottom. There's the Gerardelle, and it's kind of a greenish blue color, and it's a
Ooh.
little bit thicker. It's so pretty, and that's the other thing I love about the pumpkin patch is you get visitors from everywhere. And I had a lady who was from Australia, and she's like, "Oh, you have the squash," which I think it's actually, I don't know if it is a winter squash or if it's a pumpkin, but it's very popular apparently in Australia. And this is going to be my ninth season, and I have yet to eat one. Every year I think I'm going to fix one of these, and every year, I don't know, I guess I get busy and forget to do it. But they are really good eating. Squash is related to the pumpkin, so
Yeah.
that's no big surprise. And then where I live, we have a very big Latino population, and so I'll have people stop by because they love to eat pumpkin there too. So there's just, yeah, every kind of squash and pumpkin really has a use, whether it's decorating. Some are even better for painting than
Yeah.
others, we've learned over the years.
How do you help the people who are coming to visit you figure those kind of things out, right? Because if you come to the
Sure.
pumpkin patch, I typically just look for one that has the shape I like, but then if I
Sure.
wanted to make a pie, maybe not the best one to have.
Exactly. So there are definitely pie pumpkins. At our place, they're called Baby Pam or Sweet Sugars. So they make a better pie because they have, I suppose, a higher sugar content.
Yeah.
And they're smaller. So we put signs. We offer a you pick pumpkin patch, but not everyone wants to get dirty and not everyone wants to climb through the vines because I'm sure you learned in your accidental pumpkin patch that pumpkin vines are prickly. And if you
Yeah.
go out into the
They're
field,
itchy.
yeah, you want to make sure, exactly, you want to make sure you're dressed for it. So I would recommend a long sleeve shirt and boots, at
Long
least clothes you
pants.
don't mind getting dirty. Long pants, exactly. So if you're going to wear tennis shoes, make sure they're ones that, you're okay with throwing them in the washing machine. Because that's the other thing. Sometimes people dress so cute to come to the pumpkin patch, or they dress their kids so cute, and then they're like, oh, but don't get dirty. Well, I'm just a big believer you're on a farm. Like half of that, especially if you're like a little kid, is getting dirty. That's half the fun. Anyway, we provide that experience for those who think getting down and dirty is fun or picking their own, just like you would go out to
Yeah.
a Christmas tree farm and pick out a tree. We
You
offer
can take
that, but for
nice
those
pictures first before you get really dirty.
exactly, and then change your shoes like Mr. Rogers. We provide pallets, so if you want to have the pumpkin picking experience without all the dirt, we've already
Right?
picked them, washed them, and placed them on a pallet. And then to help people choose, I make signs. I've had them designed so that we can use them year after year, but it lists the name of the pumpkin and talks about what its best uses are, and then it
Oh,
gives them a
nice.
picture. So that's how we try to do it.
I mean, who would have thought when we were kids, right? It was such a simple world. You had either a
All
tall
you had was
pumpkin
an orange
or a
pumpkin.
perfectly round pumpkin, right? Like it was tall or it
Right.
was round. And that was
Right.
it. How
And now
big it
there's
was is the only
exactly.
question. So,
Absolutely. I didn't know there was anything other than a jack-o'-lantern pumpkin when I was a kid.
right, right. So that traditional jack-o'-lantern pumpkin, do you guys have those, I assume, as well?
Yes, absolutely. But they come in all different sizes too. I mean, I've grown some that are big white pumpkins and they're called polar bears and they get just huge. I also have Atlantic giants, which are big orange pumpkins. In fact, one this year we had to use the forks of the tractor to move it. I'm not sure who's going to take that home with them because it's so big, but it's been kind of fun. And when you were talking about accidental pumpkins, some of our biggest pumpkins actually grow in our compost pile. And I think it's just because it's so full of nutrients in that pile.
Yeah.
And then it's also kind of shady. So it probably helps keep a little bit more moisture over there as well. But it's kind of fun to see what just grows naturally over by that compost pile.
Well,
we do not open that part up to the public, though. I don't think anyone would want to pick from there.
Playing in the compost pile doesn't sound as fun as it. Digging worms is one thing, but in the compost pile is something else. That's so funny. So when you guys look at pumpkins, is one of the big difference in what would be considered a carving pumpkin sort of the texture or the width of the like what's different between carving pumpkins and painting pumpkins?
Yeah, I think it has to do with the skin. You're right. Carving pumpkins are a little bit thicker. Some of the pumpkins, though, are too thick, so they don't make a good carving pumpkin.
Right.
And some of them are, it's just basically, I think, size and preference anymore. I would have never thought about carving a white pumpkin, but my mom did. Yeah, and it was so cute. And then if you're going for some designs, you don't even have to paint the pumpkin because you could just use the color of pumpkin. We have some that are called knuckleheads. And they make the perfect like witch face because they have all these, it almost looks like little warts growing all over them.
Oh, kind of bubbling up.
It
looks like probably a disease or something, but that's inherent in that time. Yeah.
In fact, the first year I grew knuckleheads, my brother was out looking at my pumpkin patch and I wasn't there. And he said, "What's wrong with your pumpkins?" And I said, "Which ones?" And he sent me a picture and I said, "Oh, that's a knucklehead." And he's like, "That's not nice to call me names." I'm like, "No, that's the kind, that's the variety." So I love it. They really, it's funny to say, but pumpkins have a lot of character. Like each variety kind of has its own personality, if you will. Just like that is a little bit bumpy. We have one called Orange Ruffy Thing. We have a really popular gourd variety called the Lunch Lady. So sometimes people see that and they buy it just because the name is funny.
Yeah, that's funny. For those people who are either carving it or using it for some kind of eating extravaganza, baking or whatever, what do you suggest they do with the seeds? Do you have like ways to use the seeds that are yummy or useful?
My family loves roasted pumpkin seeds. My son's favorite is with cinnamon and sugar, but then I did a taste test. Yeah, I did a taste test a couple of years ago at the pumpkin patch, and I did some with Italian seasoning, some that had a little bit more of a Mexican flair, and then the cinnamon. And also, we just like butter and salt on some of them too. So I think, why not kind of like spice up your salads? I don't know if spice it up is the right word. I guess it depends on what you put on there. But why not add some pumpkin seeds to a salad? Give it a little bit different flavor instead of the same old, same old. Also, you could put it on the tops of soups.
Yeah.
Which this time of year is great soup weather. So
how do you roast them?
My go-to is Taste of Home, by the way. If anybody, which probably dates me a little bit, but Taste of Home is online, and to me all those recipes are like what my mom and my grandma would make. So they're just like comfort food. So that's where I usually go to grab a recipe. And what I do is I go ahead and scoop out the insides of the pumpkin. By the way, if you get a pie pumpkin, they'll have way more seeds in them and they'll be smaller. So
nice.
You could go ahead, buy a pie pumpkin, use the seeds for your salad, soup, or just plain as a snack to eat them by themselves. And then you could actually turn that pie pumpkin into pie. I see that you also share on your Facebook page some recipes. I could share with you my favorite recipe if you want to buy a pie pumpkin and turn it into pudding.
Yeah.
Yes. So pumpkin pudding tastes like pumpkin pie, but you don't have to make the crust. So like, how awesome is that? So I'll send that your way if you want to share that. And
that's great.
And it's really simple. Like I followed the Pioneer Woman's recipe for making your own pumpkin. puree. It's really not hard. It's and
Yeah.
it's an investment in time, but it's really not that hard. And then, yeah, so then that way you can have the seeds and you can use the fruit. In fact, that's one of the things that I make sure I do a lot of field trips usually. I love field trips because kids are so curious. They ask a lot of questions. But the one thing I want them to go home remembering is that pumpkin is a fruit and we can eat it. So usually we'll make pumpkin pie in a bag for them. And then I just do little single servings, little cups that put graham crackers in the bottom. Then we squeeze some of that pumpkin pie filling into it. And I always love getting the thank you notes from little kids. And my favorite one was, "You are such a good cook. Will you be my friend?" I just love it. Because first of all, like pumpkin pie in a bag is the easiest thing you'll ever make. And second of all, it requires no cooking. So win-win.
It sounds like the perfect setup. Well, so you say pumpkin pie requires no cooking. It's a really easy thing. You make it a lot?
Well, pumpkin pie in a bag. Pumpkin pie in a bag, I should say. And that's what we do on our field trips. And so really we just mix it in a Ziploc bag. It's pumpkin pie filling out of a can. It's instant pudding. It's milk and some pumpkin pie spice. And you squish it all together in the Ziploc bag, and it's ready to eat in a matter of minutes.
Yeah.
So,
what's one of your favorite ways of putting pumpkin on the table, like as a food product?
pumpkin bread is definitely one of my family's favorites. Pumpkin muffins. So I'm newly an empty nester, so it's very strange for me. I used to be called like the muffin lady because I would make muffins all the time. And so last year during my kids' senior year, again, I change out my recipes like some people change out their wardrobe. I definitely have a pumpkin muffin season, and I've shared that recipe several times on several different blogs. Pumpkin muffins are one of my kids' favorites.
I'll have to get the link for the show notes.
Yeah. Definitely. And I like pumpkin muffins even as a side dish. So if we're going to do a bowl of chili, some people might put that with cornbread. I'm going to serve it with pumpkin muffins. And then I've also made pumpkin chili. And at Enchanted Acres, we have a little restaurant called the Marketplace Cafe, and we'll serve pumpkin chili there sometimes. You really don't taste it. I think it really just kind of gets absorbed by the other flavors of the chili. But I figure, when at the pumpkin patch, right? Why not give it a try? So we've done that.
What do pumpkins kind of add nutritionally? What's there that we should be?
So they are high in vitamin A and beta carotene for sure. Just
good.
like a carrot would.
Good for your eyesight.
They are definitely good for your eyesight. So sometimes we'll feed some of the pumpkins that we aren't able to sell. We'll feed them to our goats or we'll feed them to our chickens, and they eat everything but the shell. They love to eat they love to eat the little seeds. They love to eat the filling.
When you think about pumpkins, a lot of us go to sweet things like the pies and things. Are there more savory pumpkin recipes?
Yes, and I have a recipe actually so there was a gourmet food club in the area that came and bought pie pumpkins, and then they shared a recipe for me. Mm-hmm. And it is a savory recipe. So
I'll have to get that.
Yeah.
I think that's what's really interesting about so many of the holiday kinds of things, right? So many of them, you can make them into a total sweet as a dessert or something like that. But you can also make them into these savory kind of moments that other people who don't necessarily like sweets as much will go, wait a minute, that's really good.
I often stuff zucchini, like some people stuff peppers.
Yeah.
I stuff zucchini, but I don't know why you couldn't stuff a pie pumpkin or even cut it up and then layer it. I'm going to have to give that a try. Gosh, we might be onto something there.
Well, and I can tell you some of the squash and things that I've had when I'm in places like Japan, they have some great ones that they'll do that way. And so I'm always looking for some of those to come back again when I'm in the U.S. I never know when I'm going to find one. So kind of look around to see if I can find something similar. Can you tell me, one of the questions I had for you, because so many of us have gone to pumpkin patches at various times in our lives. This year, is it going to be a little bit different with some of the issues around coronavirus? And how are you guys kind of planning for this season?
I think one of the great things about a pumpkin patch is that a lot of the activities naturally happen outdoors. Mm-hmm. And when we were talking about early on in the pandemic and people weren't getting out of their houses, just not good for people's mental health. I think why not take your family, why not take your friends and spend a day out at the pumpkin patch? So it's really easy at Enchanted Acres. I know in some of the urban pumpkin patches, it can be a little more crowded, but social distancing is not a problem at Enchanted
Yeah.
Acres at all. And so, because we are located in rural North Iowa, but what we're doing with our pumpkin decorating classes is if you don't come, your group can stay together. So if it's your family, that's fine. But we're easily able to spread out so people can be socially distanced.
There you go.
Our hay rides, we're taking a lot fewer people. So
Yep.
again, we can be socially distanced if you're not part of the crowd. So we're doing more frequent hay rides and not filling the racks all the way up. We are not requiring masks outside. That's optional. We're only requiring masks if you come inside our store. And then we also do story time, which is we do a book and a craft. A lot of what I try to do is help people understand farming and where their food comes from. So a lot of my stories are kids' stories that help tell the story of agriculture. We're doing those outside. Now, when the weather turns a little bit cooler or it snows, God forbid, we'll be upstairs in Bell's Tower. And again, we'll be able to socially distance. So we might have to do more than one story time to allow for that. But we're flexible. I mean, that's one of the great things about being a privately owned small pumpkin patch is we can be flexible and adapt as needed. But I am really glad to see so many families coming out. I think it's a perfect way to spend a couple of hours. And I think that's the other blessing that's come out of the pandemic is that families are able to have more time to enjoy family time together.
Yeah, and I think more people have the option with their kids doing virtual schooling and stuff to maybe make a trip out during the week or something for those patches that are open during the week in places like St. Louis. When you live in a major city, calling around to see where there are other places outside of the city a little bit further, maybe a new option to try not only your traditional pumpkin patch that you've always supported, go to those, but also get out in the car, go for a ride out in the country a little bit further out and see what else you can find.
Yeah, that's a great point. In fact, today I just took a phone call from a homeschool group that asked if they could schedule a time to come. And so we're going to, open up on a morning for them to come in. So I think you're right. Why not call and see if they could make accommodations for your group? But also you don't have to go too far out of the city, to have a little bit more of a rural experience. I've had people drive up from Des Moines, which is 2 hours for us, but they like to come up because it is even a different experience. In fact, they say it's more of a farm experience rather than a commercial experience.
Yeah.
And then, camping has been so wildly popular. I happened to jump in on a Facebook conversation where somebody was saying they had rented an RV, but the campground they wanted to go to was booked. And I was like, here's some places you could check out in Franklin County. And while you're there, come visit our pumpkin patch. So I think you're right. Some of those campgrounds might be full, but up where we're at, there's plenty of availability.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. Now, I know you said you were trying to make sure people have an opportunity to learn about the farm because you are in a really rural area. We didn't really mention it, but your family's in other parts of agriculture too. So you bring a lot of agriculture to the pumpkin patch, right?
That's right. My husband currently is chair of the American Seed Trade Association, and I served as the American Seed Trade Association's first chair of the communications committee, and I'm still active on it. So we're very much involved in the seed industry. So that's why I'm such an advocate for people who come, especially those on field trips, to learn where the pumpkin comes from. I want them to know that it starts with a seed, and then we'll actually walk out into the pumpkin patch and show the different parts of the life cycle. So some people may not know that the blossom is where the little baby pumpkin forms. So we can see the seed, then we can see the blossom, then you can see the little baby pumpkin start to grow, and then we'll see it when the pumpkin's a little bit bigger. It starts out green, and then it turns orange, and then we know it's ripe and mature. So for me, that's really a fun way for people to learn where their food literally comes from. Also, my husband and I own a seed company, and so we sell corn, soybeans, alfalfa, and cover crops across 6 states in the upper Midwest. So that
Yep.
so this pumpkin patch is definitely one of my passions. It's kind of it's literally my little hobby farm, but my day job is doing marketing for Latham High Tech Seeds.
Yeah, yeah, which is how I got to know you. It wasn't through the pumpkin patch back in my days of the
Right.
seed business. It's funny, I actually had a chance here a couple of weeks ago to talk about seed with a bunch of gardeners, right? So people who are new to gardening or people who are a little more established. You know, for a lot of people, they look at a seed catalog or they look at the seed rack in their local nurseries or whatever. They necessarily haven't seen the full pumpkin catalog.
Right, right. Because who knew there was just a pumpkin catalog, right?
I didn't. It makes sense to me, but I've never thought about it, even though I've been working with farmers for so long. Well, listen, if people want to get in touch or they want to see what all you're doing, tell them a bit about your social media presence and your website, things like that.
I'm very active on Facebook, Enchanted Acres. To find us, you might need to put in Enchanted Acres IA or Enchanted Acres Iowa, because apparently there are other people that think they have Enchanted Acres as well.
We'll put the link in the show notes too. They can click it from there.
Great. Yeah, so I try to post several times a week, actually all year long, just because there's always something going on in the farm, whether it's baby goats being born or little chicks coming in. I just like to show people that. And I always love answering people's questions there too. I'm just in the process of revamping my Enchanted Acres website. So it's enchantedacresia.com. I noticed that my blogs haven't transferred over. So I usually blog there once a month, and hopefully we'll get those back up. I'm hoping they're not lost. And then also I'm on Instagram at Enchanted Acres.
Right, right. Well, I really appreciate it. Those were all the questions I had. Did I miss anything that you think a pumpkin novice would need to know?
You know, I think at the end of the day, I'm always about answering people's questions. So I think if you have any questions about how your food is grown, how great that you can actually meet the local farmer who has grown it so you can get their questions answered right then and there. At Enchanted Acres, we have our own apple trees. And my mom has her own grapevines. And then, of course, we grow our own pumpkins. But when you talk about being locally sourced, people love knowing that the apple butter was made from our trees when we could do it. This year was not. Unfortunately, this year I did not have a good apple crop, but I was able to source apples from a local orchard. So we're still making our own homemade apple butter and our own homemade pumpkin butter. My mom makes all of the jams, and like I said, the grapes come from her own grapevines. Another great local connection is, and talking about sharing that story of agriculture, is we grow our own oats. So the oats then become feed either for my neighbor's dairy cattle, or they'll get put into a ration for my goats. The oats make straw. So the straw becomes bedding for my livestock, or it also gets sold as fall decoration. So if you're buying large square bales of straw at Enchanted Acres, you know that it was produced right there.
That's great. I love fall for all the jams and jellies and all the things that get pickled, all those kind of pieces, and stopping at small farms and farmers markets are a critical piece of my fall activities.
At the end of the day, I want people to feel comfortable, confident, knowing how we produced it, and feel good about whether they eat it or whether they're just decorating with it. I want them to feel good about that purchase.
Yeah, they're inviting you into their homes in some ways, and you want to feel welcome there, right? Like you want to know that you've earned your spot and that they feel really comfortable with having you.
Yeah, that's a great way to word it. And it just means the world to me when I've got families that I've literally watched their kids grow up from the stroller to like being 9-year-olds now. It's just it really means a lot to me that they make that be an annual tradition, you know, coming back to Enchanted Acres to make those fall memories.
Well, thanks again for coming. This was a great way to spend part of my afternoon, and I love that you were willing to be the first in the holiday series. We are going to be talking about things like cranberries and turkeys, and I have a lot coming for the holidays. So this got us kicked off in the great way, and we didn't have to get too scary.
Well, thanks for having me and thinking of me.
So there we go. The first of the holiday episodes is now out. We have several more coming. In fact, that's what we're going to be doing through the end of the year. Please tell your friends that are also holiday people to check us out. I think they are going to find we have so many great foods coming, and the farmers who are telling their stories. I am learning so much in this, I almost feel guilty. So please tell your friends where to find us. Check us out in the show notes. We try and put as many links there as we can. But on the website, groundedbythefarm.com, we also get some of those photos, sometimes videos on there, and can really add to it a bit more. Thanks so much, and we'll see you again in 2 weeks as we continue our holiday series here on Grounded by the Farm.